Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we read the book of James. And the book of James is one of the first books that are commonly called the general epistles, which includes James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st and 2nd and 3rd John, Jude, with Jude. And these are the general epistles, not really written to a specific church, but just written generally. And the book of James is one of the earliest books. You have the book of James dating between AD 45 and AD 50. And it seems to be geared towards Jewish Christians. He starts out the letter in verse 1 with, to the 12 tribes who are dispersed abroad. Again, perhaps focusing on the Jewish community of Christian believers. And James is a good balance book. When you go into the Apostle Paul's writings, a lot of times he's trying to get people out of trying to be justified by the works of the law, and he really emphasizes saved by grace through faith. And so a person might leave with the wrong impression that, oh, well, I'm saved by my faith, I don't, works are not important. Well, James is a good balance to that, to show that no, faith and works go hand in hand. If you want to have a faith that's alive, it's going to be a faith that works. And that's kind of one of his main points. And we would make the devotion about that, but I think we pretty much covered that pretty well when we were talking about Hebrews 11 yesterday, because in all those instances of people that we saw as faith-filled, they had action that was connected to their faith. And so I think that point is pretty well seen even in the book of Hebrews. What I'd like to focus on today in our devotion is on the tongue, because James gives a good portion of this short letter to the tongue. Apparently, the people that he was writing to wanted to be teachers. There must have been a lot of them that were wanting to teach, whether here it's talking about a formal teacher or it's just talking about someone who's always trying to correct people, always trying to teach people, always trying to show people what they know, things like that. That was something that was highly revered by the Jewish community, and it's no wonder why, or no wonder how that would bleed over into the Christian community that was made up of Jewish believers. And James is warning them. He's saying, don't let a lot of you be teachers. Don't everybody want to be a teacher, because one thing that a teacher has to do is they have to speak. They have to use their tongue. And James goes into great detail to show that the tongue is a very, very dangerous thing. And so those who teach from God's word, those who correct others and teach others, are putting themselves under stricter judgment. And they're dealing with something that is very dangerous. The tongue, as James says it here, is like a fire. In verse 6 it says, "And the tongue is a fire, the very world of iniquity. The tongue is set against our members as that which defiles the entire body, and sets on fire the course of our life, and is set on fire by hell." So James is warning them big time, saying, look, the tongue is a very dangerous thing. He said in the previous verse, how great a forest is set aflame by such a small fire. And the point being that the tongue is a very small member of our body, but it boasts great things, and it can do a lot of damage. It can do a lot of hurt, especially if you use it in the wrong way. And so this is practical not only for those who would like to teach, but for all of us, for everyone who talks at all, who has a tongue. We need to be careful in the way that we speak, in the way that we talk, recognizing the fact that the tongue can be used in a very dangerous way. You might remember in the book of Proverbs it says that life and death are in the tongue, and that is definitely true. the tongue can be used for great things. The tongue can be used to encourage people, to build people up. A lot of great things have been accomplished through the tongue, through great speeches. People have been inspired to do great things. But also the tongue has been a very destructive weapon. As we look back in human history, we can see how destructive the tongue has been. And that's true whether you're looking at things from a national standpoint or you're looking at it from a personal standpoint. People can be torn down, they can be disheartened, they can be led astray through the tongue. And so James is warning them about the tongue. And so I think we know, or I'm pretty sure we know kind of some ways that we should not be using our tongue. Of course, we should not be gossiping, using it to gossip or to slander other people. We shouldn't be using our tongue to speak filthy language. You could go to Ephesians chapter 5, verses 3 through 4, in reference to that, and also chapter 4 and verse 29. We should be using it not for filthy talk and not for coarse jesting, but for other things. We shouldn't be using it for lying either. That should go without saying. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 25, let each of us speak truth to his neighbor. And so there's some very negative things that we could be using it for. We could be using it for telling or leading people astray by deceiving people. The tongue can be used in a negative way. But here for our devotion, I'd like to focus more on how we should be using our tongue. Because some people, it's easy for us to know how we should not be using our tongue because we see the negative effects in our lives when we use our tongue in the wrong way. But oftentimes it's not understood of how to positively use our tongue. What are some good things that we can use our tongue for? Well, for one thing, we should use our tongue in a very careful way. In Proverbs chapter 10, in verse 19, the proverb writer is actually kind of warning us against talking too much and kind of teaching us to be very careful in the way that we speak. It says, when there are many words, transgression is unavoidable, but he who restrains his lips is wise. And so one way you should use your tongue is very reservedly. Don't overuse your tongue. It's kind of like a gun. You know that a gun can be very dangerous. You don't want to go you don't want to go firing it everywhere and just holding the trigger down all the time. Of course not. When you have a gun, that's a deadly weapon. You're very careful in the way that you use it. The same thing is true with the tongue. We shouldn't be shooting it off all over the place, saying whatever comes to our mind. We need to be very careful in how we use it. But we also need to be using it to encourage others. Remember Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 13 where it says, encourage one another while it is still today. You can use your tongue to really build people up, to encourage them, to create a passion in them, to do great things. The words that you speak can really make an impact in a person's life, especially if you're talking about younger people, like your children or maybe your grandchildren, younger people who hear words of encouragement from someone older, someone that they respect. That does wonders for their life. And it's things like that we can use our tongue for to really help an individual out, but also help society as a whole as we encourage others. We should also be using our tongues to speak graceful words. Graceful words. Proverbs 16 and verse 24 says that pleasant words are like a honeycomb. And think about that. Are the words that you speak sweet? Do people enjoy listening to what you say, or are your words very bitter? Are you the type of person that when people come around, they're like, oh, here comes old so-and-so. It's so negative and everything's always dark and gloomy. They always have a critical word to say about somebody. We don't want to be that type of person. We want to be people who have sweet words, who have kind words, who have words that when people listen to us, they just walk away encouraged. They walk away with this pleasant feeling within them because you spoke to them in a kind and truthful and honest way. And it's like, as the proverb writer says, it's like a honeycomb, like sweet honey. And then of course we should speak words of truth. Again, we could go back to Ephesians 4:25, Matthew 5 in verse 37, You shouldn't even have to make an oath. If you're an honest person, you just say your yes is yes and your no is no. Just being a person who can speak the truth. You know, it used to be you could make a deal on a handshake. Now you got to have, you know, dozens and dozens of papers to sign to get any deal across or anything. You know, we need to get back to just living an honest life and speaking honest words to where people can trust us. When we say something, they know that we mean it. That type of thing. So these are just a few positive things that we can use our tongue for. Try to use them today. Try to use your tongue today to build someone up. Find someone that you can build up with your words. Also, when you do speak today, be conscientious of whether the words that you're speaking are sweet and pleasant or if they're bitter. And if you find them being bitter, try to turn them around. Try to have a more positive outlook and have a better type of speech that reflects a more positive outlook. And then, of course, speak words of truth. Be truthful to other people, and they'll put their trust in you. So these are some things to think about and also some things to put into practice. I do thank you guys for watching the video today. I do love you guys. Hope you guys have a great day. God bless.